Welcome back to the final 2022 episode of the SEO Weekly, where queries are weird, advice is controversial, and everything depends. I'm your host, Garrett Sussman of iPullrank, and every week I cover everything going on in the world of SEO. We're talking Google updates, blog posts, webinars, podcasts, tools, SEO Twitter, you name it, I'm on it. If you're into this stuff, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, give us a like, leave us a comment, share on the socials. I genuinely appreciate it. This week, we've got a helpful content system update version 2 rolling out. Infinite scroll on the desktop. We've got your 2023 Trends Webinar with so many cool little ideas, but honestly, SEO trends are garbage. And we've got a preview of iPullrank's 2023 boring and completely ridiculous SEO predictions. Let's dive in. Okay, so big first off, December surprise from the world of Google. They updated the helpful content system. Remember that we used to call it the helpful content update. It's the helpful content system that got an update. To understand what it's all about, definitely check out Lily Ray's Whiteboard Friday, all about the 3 Google updates you need to understand. She published that on Moz, talks all about the helpful content system as a site-wide classifier. So basically, the algorithm, the system looks at your website, all of the pages holistically, and determines whether the majority of your content is helpful or unhelpful. And if it's considered helpful, it's classified as helpful. And if it's unhelpful, it's classified as unhelpful. And that would potentially impact your rankings. Now, originally, there was some miscommunication that it was going to have this huge, massive impact, and then that didn't seem to be the case. There were sites that got hit, and in this update, some of them are actually starting to recover. What's interesting is if they made adjustments to their site and Google, after the first iteration, now decides that their content is helpful, the classifier updates the classification. In fact, Danny Sullivan responded to Dr. Marie Haynes with that exact scenario and explained that after this rollout, we will see a new updated classification and sites were reclassified. Now, one of the tricky things with this is it's an ongoing machine learning situation. So the classifier is always continually looking at and updating the sites. It's not like okay, today on January 5th, 2023, it'll look at your site. No, it's always doing that. So it's really hard to determine when you'll get recrawled and reviewed and reclassified based on the helpfulness of your content. Dr. Marie Haynes actually put together an awesome, comprehensive kind of guide on the system, how it works, what's happening, what you've seen with clients, how to establish whether your content is helpful or not. Definitely check that out. Really useful information there, but something to keep your eyes on in terms of always trying to improve your content and genuinely making it helpful, not just making it tailored to search engines so it would rank, make it tailored to users so it's what they're looking for and helpful. That's a lot. It happened. We'll see what happens over the next few weeks with the rollout and over the next few months, and any updates we will continue to include, but helpful content system, gotta keep it in your brain. Another big kind of paradigm shifting approach to the SERPs is last week, Google announced that they are rolling out infinite scroll to desktop. Now, we've already had infinite scroll for mobile for a hot minute, now on desktop. So there is no longer a page 2 where SEOs joke, where do you hide a body on Google on page 2? Well, the truth is most people will click one of those first 10 organic links, but now with infinite scroll, we can expect to continue to see more SERP changes similar to that of mobile, where Google is trying to help you refine your query more and more as you scroll down the page, because if you're not finding exactly what you're looking for on the first page, the first section of organic SERPs, then maybe your query is not right, and we can either broaden it or refine it or add different related searches or navigations to get you in the right direction. Infinite Scroll is here on desktop, worth paying attention to. And for the third Google update, a little bit more minor, but Google rolled out these topic filter modifier chips. So when you're on mobile and you put in a query, Google is going to try to get you the best results. And sometimes, like autocomplete is trying to point you in the right direction. So they're rolling out these little chips that will be added on to modify the query to give you better results. So sometimes they're topics, sometimes they're filters. But in this example for like dare ideas, it's for boys, for girls, it's trying to improve the results before you get frustrated and get the results that you don't actually want. Another example is like first date ideas, but this one's kind of weird because it's all geographic location. So I don't know if that's super helpful. Obviously, they're trying to improve it, but another little modification in the SERPs that potentially is going to impact your contextual journey of searching. 2022 has been a year, and every year Google Trends and Google do this really cool year in search in 2022, like powerful video that they're showing how search changed people's lives. But then Google Trends allows you to look globally, but also by country, for instance, in the US, to see what were some of the most popular trends. For instance, the biggest search in 2022 was Wordle. You remember Wordle? How long ago was that? We actually, Aaron Johnson of iPullrank did a great Rankable episode all about the popularity of Wordle and how New York Times bought it for the links, et cetera, et cetera. Definitely check that out. That was one of the highlights of the year. But, talking through the most popular movies like Encanto, some of the really, sad people that we lost, like Betty White, and all the big milestones that people were searching for, like how to pronounce Qatar. Yeah, World Cup, all that. Anyway, great, little interactive that Google puts out every year that's definitely worth having some fun with. So Google did their 2022 year in review of search. Well, iPullrank, we've done a lot of great stuff. We have so many great memories. I know memories are sappy and all, but I love getting involved with the SEO community. So for instance, on Rankable, I interviewed so many brilliant people. I had Cindy Crum talking about entity SEO. We had Crystal Carter talking about MUM. Chima Meje talking all about topic clusters. Patrick Stock shared his best stake. Well, actually, Patrick Stock, we talked technical SEO, but he had the most popular episode according to Spotify's Podcaster Unwrapped. But let's take a look at some of the highlights throughout the entire year. Roll the clip.
Now, I'm going to give you guys a good tip on the URL inspection tool. If your page is super slow, the URL inspection tool will break because it doesn't have it. Sometimes if it's slow enough, it won't have time to render the CSS. And so everything's not going to be styled right. So you're going to get all these mobile usability issues coming in. And it's not because you actually have mobile usability. That's why sometimes a page, if you've ever seen a page that sometimes has the issue and sometimes don't, you're like, how could that be? We didn't touch it.
It's so frustrating. It gaslights you. It basically gaslights you.
It does.
What's your perception of like the work in progress aspect of SEO?
I think it's something that I absolutely love about SEO. It's something, and I think it's one of the things that makes SEO such an interesting industry for people who are new to the industry. So I think that there's constantly something that's being newly developed, and because it's a new method, a new technique, a new tool. People who master that tool quickly and master that tool well can become the experts in that tool, even if they haven't been in the industry for a long time.
I think we have to be realistic. We are living in Google's world. Mm-hmm. First things first, we're living in Google's world. So every time you write content, you must take your cue from what is already out there, because that tells you that this is what Google wants to see for that keyword. Then the thing is taking those essential elements that you see that are repeated, take those repeatable elements, and then you can now make it your own. There are so many opportunities to do that with H3 subheadings. You can capture the basic H2s that you see, but then use those H3s. I like to talk about turning them into mini topics. Yeah. Use those H3s as mini topics to really dig deep and then cover it so cohesively that your content becomes the best, and kind of giving Google a new perspective on what should be ranking for that keyword.
I think if you're working for a client or stakeholder, your first thing to do is address them. Like it's kind of what they hired you for. And like they, a lot of times will already even know the problem. They just need someone else to tell like the C-suite or execs, this is the problem that, you know, we've been saying, can you confirm this? But then it always helps to go above and beyond, you know, the lost links, internal linking is, whether that's technical or not these days is debatable, but it used to be because the process to find them was involved crawling, scraping, etc. Now there's tools to help with that. I built one of those, which is cool. Schema, like there's so many opportunities I think that people don't necessarily take advantage of that can help them. Anything that like gets you something that's a quick win, that helps like build trust. Those are typically what I'm going to start with.
If someone is like in their org right now and they don't even know where they are with structured data, but they're in SEO, what's like one thing they should take away from this podcast in terms of the schema?
I think it kind of boils down to understanding what's already on your site. Use the Google Search Console reports, but use those resources that are available to you. Beyond Search Console, the Google documentation around structured data gives great examples of what can be done, along with what's on schema.org. Both of them have example scripts of various different types and forms. If you're trying to write something or structure something, don't be afraid of starting from that information or that resource that's available to you. That's how I learned how to write schema from a JSON LD perspective, is basically looking at example scripts going, oh, okay, I can incorporate that here, or I can nest these things, or I can do all this. And, you know, I'm able to be a little bit more advanced with what I'm including in my markup now, because I'm looking at every piece of information available, but I'm understanding that library of what's available to me as an SEO and saying, hey, these are the things that I can include. I'm going to include every possible piece of information I can get my hands on and mark it up within the script.
How do you look at Google Data Studio as a tool for reporting? And what do people really get wrong about it as a tool?
That's a really nice question. I think that there's a few different things that come to mind straight away. I'm going to start with the easiest one, and it's something of a pet peeve of mine. And I'm super happy to see people like Alida starting to talk about this. I'm sure other people have talked about this before, but it's about the understanding that Data Studio is only part of client reporting. It does not replace client reporting. So you might build an absolutely amazing dashboard, but this dashboard kind of has to be focused on the stakeholder. So who is going to be reading that? Is it going to be more of an internal tool that you're trying to build for your team? So for instance, like a content cannibalization dashboard, that's great. That's an amazing use case, but are you going to share it with your C-suite executives? Maybe not. Like, so from that point of view, I'm seeing a lot of, like in my practice, I'm seeing a lot of misconceptions about Data Studio being used as the report that you automatically send to the client. And I think that's wrong, because you're kind of missing out a lot of important steps about connecting data to the strategy and seeing how certain actions taken from your roadmap have impacted traffic or maybe external events and things like that. So I think bridging the gap there is the first kind of thing that I think is very important for people to understand.
There is this debate right now about natural language generation and using it to produce content for the purpose of surfacing on search, and whether that's either ethically or just, you know, if it's just problematic in general, because is the quality there to the extent where it's just like gobbledygook? Like, you know, there's, to your point about GPT-3 and these new engines that are coming out, they're very capable, but yet they, you know, in the SEO world, people are like, well, we're not there yet. You can't depend on it. No. What do you think?
Absolutely do not depend on it. In fact, my professional advice is to never serve or show the raw output of a language model to users in any capacity. And the reason for this is that it's been trained to fill in the blank, right? It's been trained on the internet. It's really good. All this sort of suite of models are really good at producing language that looks like it was written by a human, right? It has the form of human language, assuming that human language is English, or maybe one of a small handful of other languages. So there's an equity question about like who gets access to these extremely expensive, extremely energy intensive models. But the text that is output is not what we would call grounded in NLP. So it will produce things that look correct that are not. And it is guaranteed to have this behavior because it is not guaranteed not to have it, if that makes sense.
I'm curious if you think the more interesting, non-intuitive answers will start to get surfaced by a search engine like that.
Absolutely. I think we're going to see that proved out. And so obviously this update is being driven by the proliferation of AI tools to help writers both outline and create content. And the way that the AI tools work, like an oversimplification of the way they work, is it looks at the words that already exist that you've written and it tries to predict what's the next word. So it's like a generative model. What's the next word? What's the next word? What's the most likely thing to say after this word? And if you think about that, like logically, if you're always writing the most obvious, the most likely thing to say, you're always going to have these like kind of very average, middle of the road, predictable ideas. Now, there are ways to kind of play with AI to get it to produce more novel content. But for the most part, I think that what we're seeing is this sort of averaging of ideas because of these tools. And Google is trying to be like, no, we want more original thinking. We want to see people who are actually saying different things.
I think the big fear for SEOs who, not necessarily irrationally freak out about it, but they get upset is the idea of, what if Google gets it wrong? Like, what if, like, can we trust Google to not inadvertently penalize people who are doing content in SEO for the user and doing it well,
Yeah, I think the tricky bit as well is it's so dependent on the website type, where, for example, if you work on an aggregator or a marketplace type of website, like some of your templates, there's only so much content that's going to be there. Like, that your users are there to search. Like I used to work for Zoopla, who are similar to Zillow in the US. And so, the majority of it, people write in like a specific town or a postcode, and then they just want to see listings of houses. So it's like, well, how much content makes sense from a reader or user perspective? Like, we don't want to have content just for the sake of making Google happy, which is essentially what Google is telling us. Whereas you have other websites, which are more like informational website, publications, news, and so forth. Those are more likely to be impacted.
So you can't really prepare for anything that might come up, whether it is good times or bad times or a bad algo update or anything, if you don't know what you've got. So I would definitely audit your website, or your app, your mobile app. Mm-hmm. And I would take into account what the needs are. So when I say auditing, I don't mean only a technical audit or a content audit. I would also check rankings. I would also check what exactly it is that they are bringing, whether they are bringing the right audiences, people who are actually buying, or people they are just recommending, just leaving the site and maybe coming back later, you don't know, etc., etc. So I would check all that and see whether there is something that needs to be taken into account, because if there is a recession, we need to, from a marketing perspective, not just SEO, we need to readapt to a changing user behavior or a changing customer behavior.
Yeah, it's really interesting too, because like I think about like video SEO, not in terms of like actual YouTube SEO, but like recently within the e-commerce space, right? They had the product reviews update, and there was this whole recommendation of using multimedia, and obviously with images are going to become more and more important to include that in your content. It surprised me because it's like a affiliate website might embed someone else's YouTube video, and it's someone else's, but they still get credit for,
I do. I get
Yeah.
traffic. Like if we're talking about rankings, let's talk about it. I do
Yeah.
rank on images such as Big Chihuahua on I have a dog blog for fun, and I don't own a Chihuahua. I have never seen a big Chihuahua in my life, but apparently that photo is a big Chihuahua. So just keep in mind, like even using stock photos, you can get traffic. Just please don't leave it as like photo stock dot whatever JPEG. Like don't do that. I had a client of mine who was huge TV celebrity in a very specific industry, fishing, and sometimes you can't get pictures of the fish, so he would go to a photo bank, and I'm like, this breaks everything. Okay, this is not okay for me to see this. I imagine you out on a boat. Okay, don't leave the like Pixabay. Like no.
What are some of these major issues that people are encountering?
Yeah, so I mean, when you think about which depending on almost no matter your opinion on like crawl budget, right, as a topic, I mean, when you consider the double wave indexation process, right? If Google has to essentially crawl twice, let's say, in order to consider a page for indexation, when you have really large websites, that problem is exacerbated, right? And there's also kind of competing, let's say, solutions where like server-side rendering, is often considered to be like kind of enough. But even then, when you consider more technical concepts like hydration and stuff like that still comes into play, that again affects large sites even more because it takes Google that much more resource to get through the site, right? And so what we kind of see happening is that, it can take Google 10 days, couple weeks, maybe even an entire month to get through not even half of a website, right? Depending on just what they have going on, and maybe not even sheer volume. Like it could even be like hundreds of thousands of pages as opposed to millions of pages, and Google still might not be able to get through it all if it's really dependent and heavy on JS.
At the geographical, like local level, there's the aspect of being able to govern everything at scale. Like what can you do across every location? And then personalizing, for individual stores. How do enterprises approach, what are the opportunities that come from targeting specific locations?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we try to, when we think of local, in our minds, it's how do we elevate the local shopping experience to the same level as the best e-commerce shopping experiences, right? And so for us to answer that question is almost inevitably, make it super easy for customers to find, deep local content that they're looking for without a lot of effort, right? And so if you kind of take a step back and you look at, the state of play in most of the industry right now, almost everyone has some form of store locator. Most, retailers out there have at least one store page, but that's usually where it stops, right? And some retailers try to cram an incredible amount of information on one store page, but that in some cases just confuses Google because now they're like, I'm not really sure what this is totally about. So we kind of take a different approach and we say, well, look, why don't we make what we call a microsite or a digital storefront for each location, and then actually generate pages that kind of represent that intersection between location and content.
Rankable was fun, but SEO Battlezone was what's up too. We had actually this new series where Michael King and Zach Chihalis of iPullrank went head to head. Zach, the flying dinosaur Chihalis, and Michael, the Rainmaker King, kind of talking about all of these controversial, opinionated topics in the world of SEO. We covered AI content. We talked about copycat content. We talked all about whether you can actually tell if an algorithm update impacts your site or attribute it to that. We had a great second to last episode on Friday all about SEO forecasting, which is very controversial. They had strong opinions. We've got one more coming up on Friday to keep your eyes peeled for when it comes to what are we talking about on Friday? Automated testing. It's a really cool episode. I'm excited. So check all those out. In terms of Rankable, last week's episode, we had Roman Adamita talk all about log file analysis, and we got Veruska coming up this week on Wednesday talking about international SEO and localization. Veru crushes so many interesting ideas. Anyway, it was an awesome year when it came to all of our video content. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to know what was your favorite interview or topic that we covered in those two series. Keep your eyes peeled for more episodes going forward, but I had a blast. So much good stuff. Okay, I'm a nostalgic person at heart, and it's fun to look at the past, but it's also fun to look into the future. And so last week, Zach Chahalis and I, we did a 2023 SEO Trends Webinar with iPullrank, and we had so much fun covering everything from recession and SEO, the changes to the contextual SERPs, e-commerce SERPs, AI content, entity SEO, and obviously, SEO trends are all kind of garbage. I mean, they're fun and there's some paradigm shifting ideas, but ultimately it's all about SEO fundamentals. And so we covered a lot of that too, structured data, internal linking, technical SEO. Definitely check out the webinar. It was so much fun. I think it was pretty hilarious. But that's me. I have a sense of humor, a weird sense of humor. I don't know. Make up your own decision. You let me know what you think. But at the end of it, we actually gave a preview to what's coming out tomorrow, the 2023 boring and ridiculous SEO predictions. I reached out to the SEO community. We actually did this last year and it was so much fun. In fact, Roxana Stingu submitted her prediction back last year and said, I believe that infinite scroll is going to be on desktop. And as you saw earlier in the episode, we got to the end of 2022 and they slipped it in there. So ridiculous prediction. Correct. There were so many good ones that were submitted this year. Little preview, Jess Joyce suggested the idea of Google Plus coming back, which I know that was a ridiculous prediction, but maybe Google tries to do social. I wouldn't be surprised. We got some interesting ones around microsites, around Mercy Janicki was talking about how bad UX would actually be penalized, like all those pop-ups and interstitials that come up, that maybe that would actually impact your rankings. I don't know, maybe, but we will be delivering that tomorrow. If you are not already signed up for the Rank Report newsletter, sign up for that now, and then we'll get that into your inbox tomorrow as well. But it's so much fun to do the predictions. What are your predictions? What do you think we'll see in 2023 when it comes to SEO? I'd love to hear. Leave a comment. Let me know. In the world of SEO Twitter, so as I mentioned on the webinar, we talked a little bit about AI content. Obviously, Michael King has covered that recently in his epic breakdown post of why it's not actually a threat to SEO. Interesting Twitter thread. So first off, interesting concept by Jono Alderson. He basically said, SEO folks getting excited about using ChatGPT to generate content pages cheaply at scale are missing the point. And for those of you who aren't familiar, OpenAI released this free chat where you can type in anything and the ChatGPT will respond with pretty compelling, convincing, content. But you can't just use it for SEO yet. That said, Jono goes on to say, the bigger paradigm shift here is that content no longer needs to be written, published in advance. We're becoming unshackled from having to predict content demand. This has huge implications. People with questions won't need to seek out already published content for it. They'll get answers on demand. For SEO, that means we need to focus more on original opinionated thought, making the destination more appealing and influencing training. Now, one thing I will say to that is that this GPT chat, for instance, is actually trained on 2021 content. So anything that's been created since then is not machine learned as of yet. I think his point is that eventually, the machine learning will keep up. We'll keep feeding it more content, so it'll get more accurate. A lot of SEOs actually had a lot of strong opinions all about it. Some were in agreement, some completely disagree. It's a great thread worth reading, and it's an interesting philosophical exercise as to whether or not if, but when AI content will actually be a threat. Share your thoughts when it comes to that. Have you used AI content? There are some specific use cases that we covered in the webinar as well, whether it's using it for metadata, using it for content briefs, using it for short ad copy. There are use cases where it could be appropriate, but you can't just like fill up your whole website with AI content at this point. And the helpful content system probably would ding you as well, because it's not going to be factual. I can talk. Anyway, good tweet by Jono. In the world of SEO, there's so much to cover, and I actually missed the previous week a awesome comprehensive guide from Lidia Infante on the Wix blog all around international SEO. She answered a ton of critical questions. For instance, like, do you even need an international SEO strategy? And no, if your audience is mainly from the same country or searches for your services in one language. Yes, if your business uses translation strategies to target different languages or localization strategies that tackle the needs of different markets regardless of language. SEO localization is so much more than just translation. She points out, what do you need to consider it a success? You need translation and content localization. It's not just apples to apples. You need to maintain complex multilingual context systems. You need cultural considerations for SEO, UX, and UI, and strategy for distinct language characters and scripts. If you read this entire comprehensive guide and you still want more about that localization, then, as I mentioned, check out the Rankable episode coming out Wednesday with Ruska, where we really go into the nitty-gritty of that as well. But great article by Lidia. And then speaking of Wix, I actually was on SERPs Up, which is Mordy Oberstein and Crystal Carter's Wix podcast, talking all about integrated SEO, how you shouldn't silo SEO, just focus on SEO, blinders on. No, you actually need to incorporate PPC, social, content marketing, different types of strategies within your SEO. And I kind of gave my 2 cents in terms of prioritization, how you focus on where the money is. And they have some great kind of contextualization of my perspective, in the sense of, it depends, obviously, whether you're an established site and you're focusing on money, or you're just kind of starting and getting stuff out the door. Either way, SERPs Up is an awesome podcast. Mordy and Crystal have great energy. Highly recommend you check it out. And, let me know if I'm on the right path when it comes to prioritization of SEO efforts. Very cool. Dr. Pete Myers on Moz did a deep dive in terms of the different types of video SERP results that we've seen over the course of 2022, whether it's, breaking videos up into chapters right in the SERPs, showing it at just on like the right side, or different like video packs that are branded versus non-branded, thumbnails in videos, big mega videos. We've even seen Google testing out being able to watch a video on the SERP, which seems like something we'd expect to see going forward as Google tries to keep you on Google. Also short form, so how they're showing like TikTok results. I think Dr. Pete does a great job just showing all the different types of video. And if you are not bought into video, I feel like, when we're talking SEO predictions, and we're like, oh, make sure that you're doing video, like, yes, still make sure that you're doing video, because it continues to show up in SERPs. And, focus on video SEO and actually putting as much context and metadata information as you can into your videos, so that they show up and are discovered and are visible in your SERPs. Cool article. So cool new feature release for free from Andy Chadwick of Keyword Insights. Basically, the ability to look at the SERPs, really explore it from any location without a VPN. Really cool new tool. There's really no limitations in terms of what you can do with it. So if you're an SEO and you really need to like get in the SERPs, great little feature to play around with. So check that out. Good job on those guys over there at Keyword Insight. There's an article on Search Engine Land by John McAlpin talking all about Looker Studio, previously Google Data Studio, but how to adjust your reports. He focuses on like clients for agencies, but if you're an in-house marketer and you're creating Google Looker reports, then you can use this as well. But gives 3 key like advice, like how to change the branding to make it align with your own branding, how to bring in technical SEO auditing via like a Screaming Frog export, report and connector. And then finally, in terms of using it for like backlinking information, whether you're using like SEMrush, Ahrefs, and pulling in that connector information to create beautiful reports. So really helpful if you're in Google Looker and creating updated reports that way. Great work, John, on that article. That's it for the last episode of 2022 for the SEO Weekly. We've got some really big, exciting changes coming up starting in January. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can get all the updates when we roll out. Big news. I had so much fun this year doing this show. We almost hit 50 episodes. I mean, yes, I did take a 3-month sabbatical of parental leave for having my daughter, and that was easily my highlight of 2022. What was yours? What was your favorite thing in the world of SEO? And also, what are your predictions for 2023? I really am bullish on the whole idea of the SERPs continuing to change, this whole idea of information gain, that we need to really hit up every different part of the funnel for all the different types of personas, because maybe, hopefully, Google will actually start surfacing unique non-copycat content in the SERPs. I don't know. That being said, I'm excited to give you a big holidays goodbye to all the folks at iPullrank. We did this last year's holidays. We all celebrate different things. Some people are celebrating Kwanzaa, Christmas, Hanukkah, Diwali, which was a few weeks ago, you name it. So we celebrate holidays. I am going to pass it over to our official The SEO Weekly correspondent, Nefakara Aaron, to say a big holidays thank you and goodbye from iPullrank. Take it away, Nefakara.
Thanks for the intro, Garrett. My name is Nefakara. I am the Office and Special Projects Manager here at iPullrank. Holidays is a term that we use to recognize and celebrate our team members' observances during the month of December. And we have some things in store for you guys. I can't wait for you guys to check it out. Happy holidays and Happy New Year. Back to you, Garrett.
And there you have it. From all of us to you, thank you again from iPullrank. My name is Garrett Sussman. I have had so much fun doing this. Please subscribe to the channel, like, follow, share on the socials, and I will see you in 2023.